السلام عليكم. محاضرتنا راح تتكلم عن biology of tooth movement. احنا حتى نعرف ال work of the orthodontic appliance, we have to know the biological response of tooth structure to the forces applied to the tooth, so that we can know when and where to apply orthodontic forces. بهاي المحاضرة we have objectives which are periodontal ligament structure and function. We will know about the response to normal function, the biological control of tooth movement and theories of tooth movement, the response of the teeth to orthodontic forces, and the effect of force duration and force decay on the orthodontic movement. So let's start our lecture. Periodontal ligament structure and function. The PDL is composed mainly from collagenous fibers that are inserted into the cementum of the tooth on one side and into the lamina dura of the bone on the other side. It runs at an angle so that it can resist the tooth movement during normal function. The PDL occupy 0.5 mm space. In addition to the collagenous fibers, periodontal ligament also contains cellular elements like mesenchymal cells and the tissue fluid, and both are important for orthodontic movement. The response to normal function. During mastication, the teeth are subjected to forces that are heavy and intermittent, which means that it lasts only for 1 to 2 seconds. During these forces, the BDR and the tissue fluid will transmit these forces from the tooth to the adjacent alveolar bone. The alveolar bone will bend in response so that to prevent tooth movement. If these forces last more than 2 seconds, it will cause tooth movement, which in turn will lead to compression of the BDR. In addition to the masticatory forces, there are forces from the lips, from the cheek, and from the tongue, which also have a potential to move the teeth as the orthodontic forces. The biological control of tooth movement. We have two theories, the bioelectric theory and the pressure tension theory. In the bioelectric theory, the tooth movement is produced due to the application of light pressure, will cause biological electricity, and this electricity will cause bone metabolism and in turn will lead to tooth movement. In the pressure tension theory, the tooth movement is related to the release of chemical messenger. The chemical messenger is produced due to the damage of cells in the PDR and due to other alteration in the blood flow. These messengers will act on cellular changes, bone metabolism, and in turn will lead to tooth movement. Both mechanisms play a part in the biological control of tooth movement. However, the chemical messenger theory play a dominant role. The effect on the response to orthodontic forces. حتى نعرف الريسبونس of the tooth to orthodontic forces لازم نعرف انه اكو two types of orthodontic forces, light force and heavy force. So when light force is applied to a tooth, within a few seconds there will be alteration in the blood flow, compression of the PDR, and the escape of the tissue fluid. بعد تقريبا 4 ساعات there will be a release of the cyclic AMP اللي هو second messenger. هذا second messenger is responsible for the triggering of bone metabolism. Therefore, we recommend that the orthodontic appliance should be worn at least 4 to 6 hours to be effective. بعد 48 ساعة the osteoclast will reach the site. The osteoclast is derived either locally from the tooth structure site or distantly from the blood flow. The osteoclast will be responsible for removal of the bone on the compression site. After removal of the bone, the process is called frontal resorption. The tooth will be moved from the original site into the new site. After that, the osteoblast will be responsible for bone opposition on the tension site. Heavy force application. When the heavy force is applied constantly to a tooth, it will lead to compression of the PDR. It totally occlude the blood vessels and cutting off the blood supply, damaging of the cell, and sterile necrosis will occur in this area. And because of its histological appearance, which is the absence of cells and blood vessels, this area will called a hyalinized area. So in order for a tooth to move لازم تجي cells from distant area. After a delay of several days الاوستيوكلاست راح تجي من adjacent bone marrow تجي للunderside of the lamina dura. It will remove the bone from the underside of the lamina dura and reaching to the necrotic area. This process is called undermining resorption. It will take days to complete it because of the large area to be removed. Effects of force duration and force decay. بالforce duration عندنا ثلاث أنواع هي الكونتينوس والintermittent والinterrupted. بالcontinuous force يعني احنا بنسلط force بين visit و visit راح يجينا البيشنت راح اكو لا تزال اكو جزء من الفورس باقي يعني الفورس ما راح ترجع لصفر. So force maintained at some appreciable fraction of the original from patient visit to the next. بالinterrupted force the force level will be declined to zero between activations. يعني احنا بنسلط فورس راح توصل للماكسيمم and تبدي تقل تدريجيا الى ان توصل للزيرو. The next visit will reactivate it and so on. Both the interrupted forces and the continuous forces are produced by fixed orthodontic appliance. يعني patient ما يتدخل بيها. Intermittent forces in which the forces is declining to zero abruptly. This usually occurs in the removal appliance when the patient remove the appliance from the mouth. When it is reinserted, it will return to its original force. As we can see that the forces is declining gradually between one patient visit to the next. So the intermittent forces can also be considered as an interrupted force. There is an important interaction between force magnitude and how rapidly the force decline. يعني شنو العلاقة بين الفورس magnitude وش قد تبقى الفورس. ف if we have light continuous force اللي هو بالعادة بالfixed orthodontic appliance راح يصير عندنا دائما relatively smooth progression of tooth movement. يعني يصير عندنا frontal resorption, tooth movement, repair, then again will be frontal resorption, tooth movement and repair and so on. This is what we call light continuous force. If we have heavy continuous force, the tooth movement will be delayed until undermining resorption can remove the bone necessary to allow the tooth movement. At that time the tooth will change its position rapidly. مثل ما نعرف احنا اذا اكو heavy force راح يصير عندنا undermining resorption بالcompression side. ورا ما يكمل الريزوربشن راح يتحرك التوث. بس عندنا بالتنشن سايد لازم يصير عندنا ريبير. بحالة الهيفي كونتينوس فورس يعني ما راح يصير عندنا ريبير لأن الفورس مستمرة راح تؤدي إلى further undermining resorption and so on. So there will be no repair of the PDR, no bone formation, and this will affect the tooth, the PDR and the bone. أما إذا عندنا light intermittent force يعني if the initial force level is relatively light, the tooth will move a small amount by frontal resorption and then will remain in its position until the appliance is activated again. يعني احنا من عندنا light force راح يصير عندنا tooth movement أكيد by frontal resorption وبعدها راح يصير repair. لأنه intermittent يعني ما راح يصير عندنا force ثانية لهذا راح يظل التوث its position until the activation of the appliance again. Lastly, if the force is heavy and intermittent, the heavy force will lead to undermining resorption and the tooth will move when the undermining resorption is completed. The tooth movement will be quick, but there will be time because the intermittent force means that the force is dropped to zero. there will be a time for the tension side to be repaired and the bond to be opposed. Thank you for listening.